Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Believe in a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do, keep breathing.
That's right. When you don't know what to do, just keep on breathing. From the City of Angels in beautiful Los Angeles, California, welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver, coming to you live on 30 global audio and video platforms like iTunes, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Spotify, etc. And we're proud to be voted #1 Caregiver podcast on FeedSpot, and also #1 Caregiver podcast on Player FM. And we have an exciting show planned for you today. Dr. Marc Sapir is with us today, and we're going to be talking about all sorts of things. Let me give you his bio real fast. Marc was a medical director at the Center for Elder Independence. That's a PACE project for disabled elders through the 1990s. His book of stories about working with frail disabled elders in a comprehensive team-based, community-based, social medical environment will be released on May 15th, just almost about a week ago. And he's a grandfather, a great-grandfather, so am I, social activist, a writer, me too, retired, me too, primary care and public health physician, and an old man who depends on Social Security and Medicare. Oh my gosh, me too. We have a lot in common, Marc. And let's talk about the importance of social engagement and systems of social support to healthy aging. As you know, our audience are burned out caregivers, so I think you've got a few wise things to say to them. And before we get started, I do want to thank my last week's guest. And remember, you can listen to that show and all our shows, including this one, on all those platforms that I mentioned earlier, and also on caregiverdave.com. All right, Dr. Marc, welcome to the Caregiver Dave Show. Sorry we had so many technical difficulties. We're working on my phone now, which never happened. So hope everybody gives me lots of grace.
Thanks for inviting me, Dave. Nice to meet you.
Now, I like to ask as a first question, just who is Dr. Marc Sapir, and why was he placed on this earth?
Well, that's a big question, isn't it? Hard to answer, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I went to medical school, but I thought I was going to do medical research, but I decided to go into medicine, and I wound up doing primary care and community clinics, and I worked for a while with United Farm Workers, and then back in community clinics again, and where I was a medical director a couple times. And then I went back to school, got a master's degree in public health and epidemiology, and I became a public health officer for a while, then started a high school health center, and then I landed in actually was recruited to be the medical director of one of these PACE programs, which was an amazing experience because it's so comprehensive, and the interdisciplinary teams provide a huge amount of support. And that support is not only for the participants, but it includes support for the families and caregivers as well, because it's a big team, and people come to adult day health centers anywhere from 1 to 5 days a week. The teams decide how many days based on people's needs, medical and social. So it's an exceptional program, and I'm glad I did it. And in the process, I became very intimately involved socially with many of the patients. We call them participants in the PACE model, and got to know a lot about their lives, and started writing stories about their lives, which resulted in this book, I'll Fly Away.
You're a storyteller.
That's what it's about. Yeah, I think that's what life is about for all of us.
I love stories. Who doesn't love a good story? All our kids love stories. So you're no stranger to caregivers. You're no stranger to burnout. Tell me the truth now. Is caregiver burnout avoidable? And what tools can caregivers employ to avoid caregiver burnout? Because that's who our audience are.
I think it's avoidable. I mean, once you're feeling burned out, that's harder to deal with.
It's too late, right?
it might not be too late, but
It's no longer prevention, right?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. But if you think about it in advance and are aware of the risks of being burned out, then you have options. There are things you can do to prevent it. And that's true in all aspects of life, not just in caregiving for a disabled elder or somebody who's going through a lot of problems. The way that you have to deal with the disabled population as a caregiver depends a lot on what the cause of the disability is, what kind of disability someone has. If it's purely cognitive, like dementia, Alzheimer's, and so forth, that presents certain kinds of problems that would be different from people who have disabilities that are mainly physical.
Right.
So, it just sort of depends on, there's a lot of particularity in that. But the one thing that's always the same is, and this is true in life in general, you got to kind of foresee that you're going to run into, as somebody gets worse and more disabled and older and require more needs, you're going to run into a situation that will ultimately tax you exceptionally. And so you have to work on trying to build a system for yourself that will be able to give you rest and relaxation and relief from the work that you're doing, and also a community of people who you rely on for emotional support and sharing. So I think those are the hallmarks of what you have to do. You have to do it as the process is unfolding, rather than after you're already too wiped out to do that.
Right. And congratulations on your book, just released a week ago.
Thank you.
In writing your book, I'll Fly Away, that reminds me of that Christian song, I'll fly away, Lord Jesus.
You got it.
You talk about stories. It's a whole book full of stories, which is great, but there's stories about disabled elders, right?
Yeah.
Why did you choose to tell their stories in that genre of storytelling?
Well, they're the people. I think that my story is part of their story.
Yeah.
I'm not telling their stories as an outsider. I'm telling their stories as a partner with them, and what I learned from them. And I learned a whole lot from a lot of the disabled folks, some of whom were mentally ill and had serious problems, some of whom were severely demented, some of whom had physical illnesses, some of whom had family problems and other kinds of problems, alcoholism, whatever. And despite all of the burdens that different people had, it's amazing how much you can learn and how exciting it is to hear about the life stories of people. This is, I think if I hadn't been a doctor, I would have wound up being a storyteller, teacher, and so forth.
Yeah, caregiving is very stressful. 30% of caregivers actually die before their loved ones do. And the ones who are caring for dementia or Alzheimer's patients, that statistic is as high as 40%.
Right.
And, for the lucky ones who don't die, well, they'll just kind of usually end up in a nursing home and needing a caregiver of their own. So it is a very, very stressful situation.
I was just going to say, one of the sad things about what's going on with financing and healthcare and so forth in this country is that the PACE program originally, when I was there in the 1990s, we could take in somebody who was fairly demented because they couldn't take care of themselves. And so they qualified that way. But the federal government then restricted it so that dementia wasn't enough. You had to have more things wrong with you than just that to get into this program. It is a high intensity a resource program, and the Medicare and the Medicaid provide under contract with the PACE programs high financial support that allows for you to have team and an entire transportation system and to pay for people's hospital care and so forth. So, but I think there's still plenty of opportunities that many dementia patients do have other physical problems as well.
It's almost like our lawmakers have no clue what it's like to care for someone with dementia. But I'm thankful that we have a president now who is highlighting caregivers. He's trying to change the tax code so that caregivers can get some benefits, to take care of their loved ones, or maybe even some tax breaks. Can you say more about why you titled the book "I'll Fly Away," which is the title of an old gospel hymn?
Yeah, well, there's an endnote in the book that explains
Yeah.
"I'll Fly Away," which is fascinating. Of course, we had a gospel choir at CEI.
Oh, wow.
Participants went around the Bay Area performing at senior centers, and they won a state award, actually. So that played some role in it.
Was it a trio?
This was a big group of disabled elders.
Oh.
And the woman who led it, her name was Lillian Stovall. She was in the activities department at CEI. And she's one of the Stovall sisters. They were the backup singers for Tina Turner, believe it or not. And
Wow.
And if you there's, what is it, 10 feet from glory or something like that, from fame or whatever. There's a movie about backup singers and how they were just always kind of kept in the background and didn't.
I'd love to see it.
Not treated very well. But anyway, Lillian put this thing together and she did a great job on it. It was, as high quality as you could imagine, and so they were very successful. But anyway, the book is titled partly on that basis, but also we had a lot of gospel singers. There were a lot of African American participants when I was there at that time. Now it's changed. The demographics has changed. You'll CEI some.
Yeah.
But anyway, the title came to my mind. I suppose I think that gospel song was in the film "Oh Brother," "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," or whatever. Is that the name, with James Clooney?
You know what? You froze for about 30 seconds. Can you go over what you just said?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It's
anyway,
now the cellular data is getting.
It turns out that the gospel song "I'll Fly Away" was written by the son of a white dust farmer in the Midwest in the 1930s. And
Really?
This fellow turned out to be one of the most prolific writers of the well-known gospel songs. I didn't know that when I chose the name. And I chose the name because a lot of our African-American participants in the program were into gospel singing, and that's what led to the gospel choir that we had and so forth. So, and by the way, some dementia patients were wonderful gospel singers, and they never lost their ability or their remembrance of the words and the melodies and so forth. So it was really rather remarkable to see people participating and performing who really were kind of, as far as their cognitive abilities, kind of in another world.
That's really cool. So what are the most important things that family caregivers should know about supporting aging loved ones? Because it's a pandemic now. It's like the Social Security, problem. All of the baby boomers are now needing caregivers, and there's not enough people paying into Social Security, and there's not enough people to take care of all the baby boomers.
Yeah, well, that's true. We have an aging population, and that's the way it's going to be going forward. It will be a forever problem, and it's going to require tremendous resources. That's what, PACE does use a lot of resources, although it generally saves money through reduced hospitalization and nursing home placement. When I was the medical director at CEI, we had lower hospitalization rates than average Medicare patients, although we were dealing with a very disabled population. And that's because of the intensivity of the program. We were able to keep an eye on people, whether in the homes or in the day centers, on a regular basis. We could see them in clinic every day if we wanted to. Not too many doctors can do that. Not too many healthcare systems will see people every day unless they're in a hospital. It was very accessible kind of healthcare. And we don't have that in our healthcare system because it's profit-driven, and there's not an interest in maximizing people's involvement with care systems because it does cost money.
And let's not even talk about the veterans. That's a whole nother story on veterans caregivers.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about the PACE model, the social medical model. What do you mean by that? And how does that differ from a purely medical model of healthcare? Is it having to do with financial, like you said?
No, it's what I was saying about the adult day health centers. The PACE model is built around adult day health centers.
Okay.
So you might have 60 or 80 or 100 people in each one of the adult day health centers on a daily basis, where they get activities, social activities and interaction and so forth. But on top of that, you got a clinic right there in the same facility. And then you have an occupational and physical therapy center where you can just have people go right into the physical therapy. You can imagine how that is important for people who are disabled, and very few places can do that unless you're in a hospital or in some kind of a place where they have physical therapy available. The home care department, which is decided by the teams as to whether people get home care or not, depending upon the assessment of their status. But what we used to call eyes and ears in the home, on the transportation vans, in the day center, and so forth. And you can see if people are behaving differently or any sign of illness. You just scoot them over to the clinic. So it's the medicine is right there, but it's basically a social program that it's like a caregiver, a community caregiver situation.
And that's a new model, huh? How long they've been?
Well, it's not that new. The model began out here in San Francisco in Chinatown in 1979. A Swiss social worker who was the daughter of two physicians got together with some leaders in Chinatown in San Francisco, and they put together this model, designed this model, and then they went and got it funded as a project to try to see if it'll work with the government, and it ultimately led to now 100 programs nationwide. And it's called a provider type, like a hospital or a nursing home. And it has rules and regulations and structures that are all the same in different places across the country, even though they're not under the same management or administration. Most of them are nonprofits. Some of them are run by hospital systems and so forth. Most of them are just freestanding nonprofits. They've been very successful because what they really structure is emphasis on quality of life and prevention of deterioration through hospitalizations and so forth. And you can treat a lot of things if you catch them early, without anybody having to wind up in a hospital. We used to say that for old and disabled people, hospitals are a place you go if you want to die. Because things start to come apart pretty rapidly if you put somebody in a bed and keep them there, and they get confused and they don't know where they are eventually and so forth. And physical things go downhill too,
Yeah. You're doing a great job taking care of the elderly caregivers, because I don't know how elderly they are. Statistics are usually around 40 to 45 is when caregiving starts for a lot of people. But I know 80-year-olds who are caring for their spouse. And so it's really, really hard to get emotional support, not only for the loved one, but for the caregiver as well. And that daily connection, What do you recommend families can do to ensure their loved ones don't feel isolated? A lot of caregivers tell me, I get no help. I got 5 siblings and I got this and I got that. I got 3 kids and no one wants to help. I mean, is that a problem of the caregiver not making it known to them that this is non-negotiable? If you want to live in my house, we got to take care of grandma or whatever. What do you think of that?
I think, like I said at the very beginning, caregivers, anybody who's going to take care of somebody has to, if it's long term, you have to realize that you're going to be going through stresses and it's going to get difficult. And you can't cope with that as an individual. You have to build structures for yourself. And so when we talk about the importance of old people being involved in community and getting exercise and so forth, this goes just the same for the caregiver as for the elder person. As you're aging, you have to stay engaged in a world that's not your work, that's not just your helping with somebody else's life, but with your own interests and your own needs. And so, I mean, there are lots of senior community centers around the country, and often they have very nice programs, social programs and educational programs and music programs and so forth and so on. And people need that kind of stuff, reading groups. One of the most important things, and this is one of the reasons why I wind up publishing 2 memoirs, this is the second, is that when I was the medical director of Center for Elders Independence, I attended a session that was given about memoir writing for the elderly. It's an extremely important tool for the health. And this would be true, again, whether you're a caregiver or you're somebody who's being taken care of. The idea of writing about and reminiscing about your own life is very healthful. So between that and, community centers, and as we get older, more of our friends start dying. And so our community is attenuated, and that makes it even more important that we try and retain relationships with friends and family, and see people that we know and we've known over the years and so forth, and share our good and our bad experiences and our burdens and so forth. And I just think it's a question, just like PACE is a question of a community, of building a community for these disabled elders. The same thing is true of caregivers. You've got to build, restore, affirm your own community of friends and family and so forth.
Well, let me ask you, what do we frequently get wrong about elder care? Talk about all the right things, but how about some of the wrong things?
Good question. That's a good question. I think that there's a tendency to think that when people get really old, of course, we all slow down. I'm in my 80s. We slow down.
You look good.
And thank you. We slow down, and we have to take time to process things. People often interpret that as us losing it, Not really
I'm 71 and I'm already getting these comments,
Not really having our minds together, and it's harder for people to hang in with us and to listen because it takes longer and so forth. And I think that that's the neglect of respect for the elders is a big problem. And I think that, like I said in another recording this week, I think that elders have to be willing to be outgoing, and even though it's be slower, but to be assertive and say, I expect to be respected, and also to recognize themselves that they have something to contribute. Everybody still has plenty to contribute. I can't tell you, and that's what this book is about. I can't tell you how much I gain from being with and learning from these disabled elders. The very first story is a woman who taught me about how to look at death in a way that wasn't just my own view of death and dying, but derives from the diversity of how people cope with it and understand it. And then other people in the program, they just kind of defied any expectations about who they were and how they might live or die. And this is really, it was amazing. And so old people have things to share. And if people aren't listening, you got to tell them, you're not listening. I'm trying to help you, because old people can help us. They got experience.
Yes. I asked a lot of old people when I was 21, hey, what about this? What about that? What about this? Because I wanted to learn from their mistakes.
Great. That's good.
So how can people get a hold of you, find out more about the book?
Well, the book is available online. You can buy it from any place, and bookstores can order it if they don't have it in stock. That's easy. As far as getting in touch with me, I can give you I don't mind people contact me directly at my email, which is my name. My name is with a C, Marc with a C, Sapir is Sapir, and it's gmail.com. So I'm happy to correspond with anybody who would like to ask me a question or so or talk.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. It was a great interview. And I want to thank everyone who tunes in every Wednesday, making us the #1 caregiver podcast on the internet. And my best book, It's Your Life Too, Thrive and Stay Alive as a Caregiver, is helping people all over the world. You can get it also wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc. But you can also get it on my website, caregiverdave.com, which I also offer a free initial coaching call, which sometimes that's just enough to solve your problem and keep moving on. If you need more, we can take care of that as well. And join my 32,000 followers on Facebook, Caregiver Dave. So until next week, same time, same channel. May God richly bless you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dave.
Dave Nasani, the Caregiver's Caregiver, has just released his 6th book entitled It's My Life Too, Thrive to Stay Alive as a Caregiver. It was specifically written for caregivers who know they should be putting their needs first, but just don't know how. Dave is the sole caregiver to his wife, Charlene, since 1996. He knows firsthand what caregivers are going through because he is one. He now speaks all across the country, offering caregivers his amazing caregiver support package. Even the airlines tell us that in the event of an emergency, to put your oxygen mask on first before you help your child with their mask. They know that those who don't heed their advice often black out, thus becoming unable to help either themselves or their child. And caregivers are exactly the same way. It's My Life Too, Thrive and Stay Alive as a Caregiver will help caregivers who are neglecting their sleep, diet, and social life and learn to put their needs first. Pick up your copy today or buy one for your special caregiver. On sale everywhere and at caregiverdave.com.
I'm Dave Nasani. My 4th book, Secrets from the Hammock, Uncommon Wisdom for Uncommon Times, is a #1 bestseller on Amazon. As a young boy, I was told I possessed an unusual amount of wisdom for my age. As a young man, I found myself counseling friends and older family members whenever they needed answers to their problems. Then at 21, I read the Bible for the very first time and learned how King Solomon asked God for wisdom instead of riches, yet he received both. I was so impressed that I too asked God for wisdom. Soon after, I discovered when lying on my hammock, I would receive wisdom from God. This book is the result of my passion to share with the world wisdom's tremendous benefits. Join me as I reveal practical aspects of wisdom for the mind, body, and spirit. 31 lessons I learned from God that can change your life. Available in hardcover, Audible, Kindle, and paperback, wherever books are sold. I've spoken all over the country and London and am available to speak at your event. Contact me at hammockwisdom.com.
Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again.